Hunter Biden has a lot of bravado, man. He now sends Donald Trump a cease and desist letter. Donald Trump has been calling him things like a crackhead because, of course, he was a crackhead. Many people think he might still be a crackhead given the fact that there is cocaine found in the White House. But his lawyers sent a cease and desist to Trump. And this means they're going on offense. And why wouldn't they? His daddy runs the Department of Justice, and he can basically do whatever he wants without any recourse or consequences at this moment. So he's sending letters out to everybody, and Donald Trump got one of them. This is what the news said. ABC broke the story. They said Hunter's lawyers send a cease and desist letter to Trump over his social media posts. An attorney for Hunty Poo sent a letter saying that this behavior from Trump could lead to injury for Hunty. The lawyer is called Abe Lowell. He's one of the younger Biden lawyers, cited past examples where Trump's language apparently inspired violence like January 6th, and Paul Pelosi with David DePape, and Obama saying this is not a false alarm. Trump, you must cease and desist. He's not a crackhead. The Secret Service didn't even find that it was his. So they sent that over to Trump. Here is what the actual letter looks like. And it's pretty amazing that they have the cojones to do it. But when daddy runs things and you're in charge of the FBI, why not? Here's the letter. Sent July 13th from Abe David Lowell, partner at Winston Strawn. This goes over to Trump's lawyers, all of them. Look, Todd Blanche, Christopher Keese, Joe Tacopina, and Susan Nicholas. All of Trump's lawyers get the letter. Here it is. It says, Dear Todd, Chris, Joe, and Susan, addressing them by their first names, which is, not uncommon if you're lawyers. You can call each other by your first names. As you know, Trump team, Winston and Strawn represents, and I am writing on behalf of our client, Hunty Poo. I'm sending this letter to make a demand that your client, former President Donald Trump, hereby cease and desist from making public statements about my client, which are both defamatory and likely to incite Mr. Trump's followers to take actions against Mr. Biden, and which could lead to his or his family's injury. The lawyer for Hunty says, I'm a little surprised to have to send this because it would seem that Mr. Trump is currently facing enough legal problems that he would not want to create any more liability for saying and doing things that could result in harm and injury. And it appears you have enough to do in defending your client in various arenas now, and yet to come then to have to deal with one more legal issue and case. Man, so he's really rubbing it in. He's like, hey, my team has all the levers of power right now. My client's dad runs the Department of Justice. He's currently indicting your client, and he's going to indict him again. And you're going to have to deal with it. This is Hunter's lawyer, who Hunter's dad runs the Department of Justice. He's the president of the country. He runs the whole country. He's the executive. It's pretty incredible that this lawyer is basically rubbing Trump's nose in his client's prosecutions of his political enemies indirectly. It's just crazy that it's happening in America, but here we are. And he's like, yeah, no fault of our own that your client's in these problems. Just happens to be Trump's political opponent. And he says, I'm a little surprised. He's like, I'm disappointed in you. Now, it's like when your mom, I'm not mad, I am disappointed. It's like, oh, that hurts. Now, the most urgent issue is Mr. Trump's thinly veiled calls to action to his easy-to-trigger followers. Most recently, on July 11th, Mr. Trump wrote on Truth Social, he said, Weiss is a coward, a smaller version of Bill Barr, who never had the courage to do what everyone knows should have been done. He gave out a traffic ticket instead of a death sentence, emphasis added. Now, you may respond that it was a mere figure of speech. That's, I think, what most people would do, is just say that. He says, but we're not going to do that. However, we have seen what might pass as such a phrase when uttered by rational people is heard by too many people in this country as some terrible injustice for which they must take physical and violent action. How do we know? Incidents like the attack on the Capitol were resulting from Mr. Trump's incitement. That has created tragic and even fatal consequences. Hunty's lawyer says, this is not a false alarm, Mr. Trump. Late last year, former Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, was attacked in his home by an intruder. That was David DePape, and he lived outside of like a BLM rainbow house with flags all over the place. Mr. Biden was also on that attacker's list. Just in the past 2 weeks, there was another incident, this one in D.C. In this one, Taylor Toronto was arrested with weapons in his van in a neighborhood where Obama lived. On the day of his arrest, Toronto reposted a Truth Social from your client containing what Mr. Trump himself claimed was Obama's home address. In In a post on Telegram, Toronto wrote, "We got these losers surrounded. See you in hell, Podestas and Obamas." And so he got arrested, right? And others too have faced serious threats from supporters of the former president, such as Judge Bruce Reinhart, who faced a storm of death threats following the warrant for Trump's arrest. And his home address was even posted on right-wing internet sites, along with anti-Semitic slurs. And again, I don't endorse any of this stuff. I don't condone any violence. I don't condone any threats. I don't condone anything that would constitute harassment or anything like that. And if you are crossing that threshold, these people will prosecute you aggressively. Okay, so be extra cautious out there. You don't even have to break the law and they'll charge you. So my point here is this type of behavior is bad, but it is not Trump's fault, and it doesn't give Hunter Biden license to tell Trump to stop posting on Truth Social in any way, shape, or form. So Trump's team gets this message. Hunter's lawyers say, "We are just one social media message away from another incident, and you should make clear to Trump, if you have not done so already, that Mr. Trump's words have caused harm in the past and threaten to do so again if he does not stop. This is part of the big narrative. Trump is dangerous. Trump needs to be stopped. If he is not held in custody, he's going to lose the election again, and he's going to insurrect again. Trump, through his speech, caused January 6th. He's going to cause it again." For some reason, Trump also caused David DePape to do that thing. This is a total non-related incident, but okay. He says it is not just his actual calls for action that inflame his followers. Trump has invoked my client's name on social media accounts to harass and incite his followers on a near daily basis since Mr. Trump himself was indicted. He's mentioned my client more than 20 times in posts about July alone. Trump has doubled down on his dangerous rhetoric about Biden in the days since he reached a resolution with the DOJ. Trump said this, "On March 31st, when Mr. Trump was notified that charges had been filed, your client's response on Truth Social was, 'Where's Hunter?' The following week, during an evening address at Mar-a-Lago, after 34 charges against Trump were unsealed and he surrendered and was arraigned, your client's response was to make wild allegations against Biden and his family." Trump posted this. He said, "When Hunter harshly threatened the Chinese businessman, he and his father, Joe, were together in Joe's house. Even the ownership of the house and rent paid are questionable and now forgotten by the news, where classified documents having to do with China were being stored. They took millions of dollars from China. How much information was given? Big stuff. Joe is totally corrupt." Trump also posted, he said, "Biden will do whatever President Xi wants of him. Remember, Hunter and Joe illegally took large amounts of money from both countries, but China right now is the bigger threat." He also reposted another thing saying horrible. And just this other week, he posted something else. Said the cocaine was probably for use by Hunter, was probably Crooked Joe in order to give his presidency a little life and energy. So he's posting all of these things that are offending Hunty. So Hunter's lawyers say, if Mr. Trump does not, that Mr. Biden has neither committed nor been accused of the charges that your client is claiming, mishandling or even having access to classified info. Right, because he runs the DOJ. He's not going to indict himself, and that the Biden family was not at the White House, let alone in the vestibule in the period when the cocaine was found. That's also not true. They were there on Friday when it was found. The White House lied about that. The press pool said that they caught them leaving on Friday night. So maybe not when the cocaine was found, but when it was placed, they were there. They were not there when they were found. You see how sneaky lawyers are? You got to be careful. Yeah, they weren't there when it was found. They left, but they were there when it was placed. Mr. Trump constantly and misleadingly agitates his followers about the so-called injustice between what he is facing and what he perceives to be undue leniency to our client, saying that other people will just take the law into their hands. And so let's be clear, says Hunter's lawyer, it was Mr. Trump, not Mr. Biden, who allegedly illegally shared classified documents with others, and it's Mr. Trump who's accused of paying hush money about his personal actions. Well, that's because Joe hasn't been charged with anything. He should. If there was an equal standard of justice, he would have been already. So Hunter's lawyers wrap it up. They say, look, I'm writing to demand a stop to this. Tell your client to knock it off. Indeed, during the initial proceedings in New York, Judge Merchan made a similar request for you to speak to Trump and anybody else you need to remind them to please refrain from making statements that are likely to incite violence or civil unrest. Stop talking about our client. You don't need to respond, as I'm hoping you'll speak with Mr. Trump privately and explain to him how his incitement can further hurt people and cause himself even more legal trouble. All right, so the lawyer will show this to Trump and tell Trump, hey, they sent you a letter. What do you want me to do with it? And Trump will say, I don't know, throw it in the shredder with the rest of the other useless letters from these people. It's totally meaningless. Hunter Biden's a public figure. He's the president's son. Trump can have his opinions on him, and it's not incitement of any violence to critique a crackhead for being a crackhead and for allegedly bringing drugs into the White House. So we have questions about double standards. Other people have questions about double standards. It's not just Trump. Here is Kevin McCarthy wondering why the DOJ and the FBI and now the Secret Service and all of these people are covering for the Bidens. Why are they protecting them while crapping all over the rest of America?
Why does the IRS go after Americans, but when it comes to the Biden family, they let the statute of limitations run out for the most grievous? That an IRS whistleblower has to come through to Congress, but why does the IRS remove these workers from going after these cases when it comes to the Biden family? Why are the Biden family treated different than every other American family?
Because they do the bidding of their handlers. They are just little pawns. They move stuff around. Everybody's getting rich. We have another endless war. And so they are provided cover. And so the letter from Hunter goes over to Donald Trump. They're saying maybe Donald Trump will stop talking badly about Hunter. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Here was a fun clip when Trump called in to the show asking where that cocaine came from.
What is your reaction when you see cocaine in the White House? Can you even believe that's possible?
Well, you saw I put out a truth. I know most of your people are on truth because I think truth is better than anything out there. But I put out a truth. It's in my opinion, it's Hunter and probably Joe. Because, you know, you watch Joe at the beginning of his speech, and he's got a little life. Not much, but he's got a little life. By the end of the speech, he's a disaster. He can't even find his way off the thing. So there's something going on there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was for both of them. I think it's for both of them, but that's my opinion.
I said, great minds think alike. I said that on my TV.
No, I think they pump them up. All right, absolutely. And we can't have a president that's on cocaine when you're dealing with nuclear weapons and everything else. You know, we're dealing, and you've heard me say this.
No, we don't want coked out presidents.
These guys, these are at the top of their game. These are smart, whether you like them or their country or their policies, you know, which are pretty tough policies. But these people are at the top of their game mentally. And we have a guy who, in his best years, wasn't at the top of the game. It's very dangerous. This country has never been in danger like this, Wayne, because of, you know, the nuclear weapons and weaponry generally. It's never. And we have a man that has no clue what's happening.
We can't have a crackhead president, man. It's not good for the country. He's got important things to do. He can't be coked out all out of his mind. All right. We need focus and competency. So crackhead Joe has not been able to deliver that. But Hunter doesn't like when you highlight their misdeeds, doesn't want it to be called out. Said's just a stupid letter over to Donald Trump. And hopefully Donald Trump continues to hammer him and the Biden crime family as the election continues. Of course, we'll continue to cover.